Welcome back to another Lazy Shell tutorial video. Today's topic is the Items Editor. The Items Editor has two parts to it: editing items, equipment, and accessories, and the shops that sell them. Up at the top, you have a drop-down menu to choose the item you want to edit, or if you know that item's index number, you can enter that in this box. To the right of that, you edit the item's name and put a symbol in front of it if you want, like putting a hammer symbol in front of the weapon. Before getting too far into it, a word of caution. I suggest not editing the stats or names of the first 5 items. The first 5 items control the stats for each ally when they have no weapon equipped. By default, these are all 0. Similarly, the names of the first 3 items are the weapon, armor, and accessory placeholder names that show up in the equipment menu when an ally doesn't have anything equipped in one of those slots. So if you edit these names, you edit them in the equipment menu. Under Item Status, you can edit the various stats associated with the item. Coin value lets you change how much the item costs to buy. An item's selling value is always half of its coin value. Coin value is the same for both regular coins and frog coins. Also, if you want an item to show up in the Special Items menu, change the coin value to 0. All of the other stats apply specifically to equipment, except this one here, Infliction Amount. Infliction Amount is used for items usable in battle or the overworld menu. This is used to make the item heal a specific amount of HP or deal a specific amount of damage. For example, a mushroom's infliction amount is 30 because it always heals 30. The star egg has an infliction amount of 100 because it always does 100 damage. Like I said, all of these other stats are specific to equipment. If an ally has a piece of equipment equipped, their stats will be boosted by these values. Of note is this attack range box. This adds a touch of randomness to an ally's attack damage dealt. It adds a value to the final damage dealt of plus or minus whatever number is in here, or anywhere in between. The hammer, for example, has an attack range of 1. This means that the final damage will either increase by 1, decrease by 1, or won't change at all. Down to item properties, you can use item type to change whether the item is a piece of equipment or an item. This determines which menu the item will be in. Effect type determines whether or not the item will inflict, nullify, or protect against various effects. Protection is used for equipment, nullification is used for items that can be used in battle, and infliction can be used on both. With infliction selected, whatever is checked under Effect will be inflicted on the target. This only works for items usable in battle, not equipment. I mentioned this in the Attacks Editor video, but don't try to inflict multiple effects at once, it doesn't work. Also with infliction selected, anything under the Status section will be increased for the target. That includes items and equipment. With protection selected, you can choose what you want the equipment to protect against. Weapon, armor, and accessories can all offer protection. Nullification will get rid of whatever is checked in the Effect section and lower whatever is selected in the Status section. Inflict function is used for non-equipment items. It makes items do specific things. You can see what specific things by opening up this drop-down menu. You've got Item Morph, which is what Yoshi cookies do, Revive, like pick-me-ups, restore HP, restore FP, etc. If you want an item to restore HP and or FP, you need to specify how much by using the infliction amount box we talked about earlier. This ominous instant death option is used by the Lamb's Lure and the Sheep attack. Apparently that attack is a lot darker than it appears. You may have noticed that there is an increase stats option. You can use items to permanently increase ally stats. All you have to do is pick a stat and enter how much you want the item to increase that stat. But be careful, if an ally's stat goes beyond 255 without equipment, it loops back to 0. Inflict Element will make the item do elemental damage, like fire bombs and ice bombs. You choose which element from the drop-down menu. Also, even though it's never utilized in the original game, weapons can inflict elemental damage on enemies. Down here are some additional properties you can give to items. If equipment has mortality protection, it makes any instant death attacks, like migraine, miss. Hide battle numerals will do just that. Make it so the numbers that normally display when you attack or heal don't show up. This is used for stuff like Able Juice and pick-me-ups. They heal status effects and death, but they don't heal any HP, so having a 0 pop up for the healing amount doesn't make sense. You would check this box to hide that 0. Usable in battle menu. As you may have guessed, makes it so you can use the item in battle. Word of caution. The item has to have an animation script, otherwise the game will crash when you try to use the item in battle. Usable in Overworld menu. Lets you use the item in the menu outside of battle. Reusable. Lets you use the same item multiple times. The number of times you can use the item is infinite unless there's something in its animation script that changes that. For example, the Lucky Jewel has reusable selected, but it has a section of its animation script that manually removes it from your inventory after using it 10 times. Targeting works much the same way as it does in the attacks editor. Needless to say, targeting only applies to items that can be used in battle. If other targets is unchecked, you can't move the cursor when you try to use the item. If it's an item that targets allies, we'll only be able to use it on whoever is using the item. If it's an item that targets monsters, you'll only be able to use it on the first monster in the formation. Enemy Party allows the item to target the enemy party. Entire Party makes the item target the entire party rather than just one ally or monster. Wounded Only means the item can only be used on someone who's knocked out, like pick-me-ups. One Party Only means the item can only target either enemies or allies. Every usable item has this box checked by default. Not Self means that the item user can't use it on themselves. Just like with spells, be careful when changing an item's targeting. Some items have animation scripts that are designed around the item being used on enemies or allies. You may need to edit those animation scripts to get the item to function properly. Menu cursor behavior. If you have the option selected for the item to be usable in the overworld menu, you need to tell the game whether using that item goes to the HP section or the FP section. You also need to specify whether or not the item can be used if the allies have full HP or FP. For example, honey syrups can't be used if FP is at max, but flower tabs can. We already talked about effects and statuses, so let's talk about what else is in this area. Element nullification and element weakness are only relevant to equipment. Element weakness will reduce the wearer's damage taken from these elements by half, like the amulet, while element nullification will reduce damage taken to 0. Who can equip? Another easy one. Any ally whose name is checked here can equip that piece of equipment. Down here we have the item's description. Just like with ally spells, you want to make sure you end the description with this 0 in brackets, otherwise the game won't know when it's supposed to stop reading the description. Now you may have noticed this weapon damage timing box down at the bottom left. This lets you edit the timing for good timing and better timing for any given weapon. We talked about the ins and outs of timing, how it works, what the window looks like, when we talked about the attacks editor. But this lets you edit them for weapons rather than ally spells. Now on to shops. At the top, you can use this drop-down to select the shop you want to edit. These shops are given the names of their locations in the original game. To add one of these shops to the game, you need to use an event script. In the event scripts editor, the shops are given the same names that they have here. Below that, you can use these various drop-downs to add items and equipment for sale in the shop. Each one of these slots has to have something in it. If you want one of the slots to be blank in the actual in-game shop, you have to choose this dummy item. Although you'll see there are multiple dummy items in the list, you need to use this specific dummy item, this one at the bottom of the list of dummies. If you want to rearrange the order of items, you can select an item and then use these move up and move down boxes to shift that item's position. Down to shop options. These are all fairly self-explanatory, but let's go through them. Buy with frog coins only once. This makes it so all of the items in that shop must be purchased with frog coins and can only be purchased once, like the Frog Disciple in Seaside Town. A word of caution, if you have one of these shops and the player purchases everything from that shop, you need to make it so the player can't access that shop anymore. If the player tries to access a shop that has nothing for sale, it won't function properly. Buy with frog coins. Makes it so anything in the shop must be purchased with frog coins. Remember that an item's coin value applies to both regular coins and frog coins. These two buy only, no selling boxes are the same thing. You can have either one of them checked or both of them checked, and it'll do the same thing. As the name suggests, this makes it so the player can only purchase items from that shop, not sell anything to it. Purchase discounts will give the player a discount on those items. All of these discounts stack with each other. You can give the player a 75% discount by checking both the 50% and 25% discount boxes if you were feeling generous. That covers everything you need to know about the items editor. As always, if you find these videos helpful, or if you just want to support the channel, please consider subscribing. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments or reach out to me. I'll address what I can, either in a response or in a future video. For now, thanks for watching. See you next time.